Hello, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Oh, Adrian, you're in Switzerland now. Wait, where are you?
Chile.
You're in Chile. Oh, cool. My friend runs an adventure company there. Let me know if you ever want to go fly fishing and I'll hook you up.
Oh, okay. Now, this was out of the Explorer Lodge when we were down there.
Oh, fantastic.
It's so nice to have everyone here. And I want to let you guys know that before we get started that we are recording this this meeting just because we know how amazing it's going to be and what an incredibly rare opportunity it is to see Hunt Studios. So we're going ahead and recording this. So just want to make sure everybody knows and that you're okay with that. And if you're not, just turn on your initial instead, or just turn off your camera. But welcome everyone. And there are going to be a few more people joining us, I'm sure, for the next several minutes. So if I'm looking down, that's what I'm doing, is letting people in. And we're so happy to have Hunt Slonem with us today. And it's just an incredible chance to see inside his world. His studio is not like your typical artist studio where you have a painting easel and a white space and a drop cloth. His studio is an entire world filled with birds and plants and color and antiques. So it's a real treat to be able to be invited inside. So thank you, Hunt, for letting us come inside your studio. And what I'd like to do while people are joining in before I officially introduce Hunt is to go through the slides of the exhibitions that will be in our physical exhibition at our gallery. So I want to get started now with that as people continue to join. So I'm going to start with, we just pulled together a grouping from our exhibition catalog. And the first one is a painting that features butterflies called Evening Distance. And actually, Hunt, since you're there and you can hear us right now, yeah. I might ask you a couple questions as we're going through these slides, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this painting I love so much because it has the butterflies, but it also has this really interesting grid system that I haven't seen you use a lot in your works. And I'd like to ask you a little bit about your color theory, why you choose certain colors in your work, and also sort of the types of butterflies that are in this painting and how the butterflies combine with the color. I know that's a big loaded question.
Yeah, it's a loaded question. Well, let me start with your question about the squares. I always try to incorporate some kind of a geometric, architectural, a stabilizing background or a holder of the subject matter, since most of my things are floating in space. So the grid form was an early stab at that, and the blocks and what I call my chinensis paintings, where I have circles referring to never-ending light in the cities, help create an environment, and an urban environment, a reference to the buildings, to the spaces between them, to what we see out of windows, since we're all so sequestered, especially now. The color is something that I've played with, and what interested me in painting since I was a child. I remember my grandmother once sent me to a store to buy napkins, and I picked out these day glow colored things, and she turned them, which I thought was quite insulting. I seem to go with whatever everybody tells me not to do. I had a 5th grade teacher that held up a pink and a chartreuse and said one would never associate these colors with each other. And of course, I instantly started using them forever and as trims. And I love breaking boundaries with color. I love pushing the envelope. I like seeing what I can get away with next to each other. Any kind of rules I was ever taught, I disregard. And I somehow come up with a sense of a harmony that works for me. It's like my studio. I have to have a certain amount of clutter and excess in order to do my work. I think Bacon had to have 3 inches of dust on everything. We all have our thing. I have to have living creatures and living growing plants to perform my painting ritual. I think you can hear one of my birds leaking back.
Which one is that? Which one is that?
I think it's Julio.
Okay.
It's a lavender Amazon.
Okay.
It's been at different times, and this is like, half a block from us at this point.
Oh my goodness.
How loud they are. What did I leave out of your question? What kinds of butterflies? So we have the morpho. I always think of the Stephen Tennant book, Serious Pleasures, where he had to be blindfolded to drive through his estate because the sight of a pansy put him in such an altered state that he almost couldn't come out of it. I saw my first morpho in a coffee plantation when I was 16 in Nicaragua, and literally it was the most exciting moment imaginable for me. I'd never seen one out of a case or a box, but I'd only imagined what they would look like. It was a truly thrilling moment for me that I will never forget. There were things called day moths that we would find. I do mix it up a bit now. I didn't used to as much. I'm mixing moths and butterflies. That the Luna has taken on great meaning for me, and the giant moths of America in particular are re-emerging in my work and my life. My Instagram recently, a friend of mine found a cocoon in the woods and it hatched in her closet, and it was a cecropium moth, and I haven't seen one since I was a child. Anyway, so I am doing the better writing, and Van Gogh painted them. They've captivated artists for centuries now. Each one of these butterflies has a meaning for my interaction with it. The white cabbage butterflies remind me of my trips to Mother Mira near Schaumburg Castle and the great open fields in Germany where you just see millions of them sniffing Queen Anne's lace or whatever. There's buckeyes, there's commas, there's viceroys, there's mourning cloaks. There's such a range of insect life, butterflies in particular fascinate me. That in itself would be enough to sustain one.
Yeah. And so in this painting that's up now, Luna and Days, you have something we touched a little bit on in the Instagram live talk that we did, which I think is fascinating. And it's something that is both a really incredible design element in the work, a compositional element, in that it separates the vertical space of the butterflies as if they're ascending, creating a horizontal plane. And that's the lines and dots that are actually much more than lines and dots, but just because most of the people who are on this Zoom weren't in the Instagram Live. So can you just talk briefly about the guardians in this painting?
Sure. I was always fascinated since I was a student in Mexico in 1970 in Cholula by Frida Kahlo's involvement with monkeys and her self-portraits, and then the famous photo of a movie theater with people with their 3D glasses on that looked like monkeys to me. And that image of the eye and the monkey and the meaning of the monkey following my trip to India, Hanuman, the monkey god known for his devotion to Shiva, famous for having brought a whole mountain to Shiva when Shiva asked for a particular plant. He couldn't figure out which plant it was, so he brought the whole mountain. Anyway, he's known for his devotion and protection. So I've mixed by the reference to the eyes and the monkeys, with the butterflies, which represent transcendence and metamorphosis, protection while this is all occurring, to make this happen, and flight occur after the fact of the cocoon and the hatching and the wings drying, etc. So it's just a mixture of things that actually happen and things that happen on an unseen, mystical level.
Yeah. And will you talk a little bit about the mystical elements in your work? Because there are so many mystical elements, like these guardians, and also like the paintings that you work on with the Queen and with Abraham Lincoln. Can you talk a little bit about how mysticism plays into your work? Even in this painting, even in the Morning Glories, it's almost like a mandala-like shape.
Well, it doesn't play into my work. It's the reason for my work for me. I'm always trying to spell out what the goal of life is, to find it deeper. I mean, painting grabbed me as a child. I was very blessed, and that I was never conflicted. I didn't want to do anything but be an artist. And so within the context of being an artist, remember Alice Neal at the Skowhegan School said, it's not enough to be an artist in this age, you have to be more. And, so my painting is my vehicle to keep me stable and growing and harnessed during the day to be productive. But then out of that comes a million other things like sculpture and spiritual practice and saving old homes and time travel through these creations that I produced. I work with psychics and healers and channelers frequently, some of them for as much as 35 years. A little known fact, Abraham Lincoln consulted mystics every day of his life, belonged to no organized religion, which I certainly never knew. There were only 2 American presidents that didn't. And I thought it was Mary Todd that invited the mediums to the White House when their children died, but it's actually, he was more involved than she was. And it was a very popular pastime in the mid-19th century. He fought the whole Civil War through this advice he received. And he has spoken to me through channelers and told me to do certain paintings, such as a type that I call Abraham's Peace Plan. He said paint doves as a sign of peace. And I did this composition with doves and monarch butterflies that I've used over and over again. And I call them Abraham's Peace Plan. Abraham Lincoln's face is just iconic. And when I was interviewed by Interview magazine, they said that Abraham Lincoln was to me what Marilyn Monroe had been to Warhol.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about the colors that you're using? Like, for instance, red or green or black and white are colors that I associate with your Abraham Lincoln paintings. Is there a
Blue, a lot of blue. Well,
yeah.
these are all colors that you see in meditative states. Believe me, I am not, a master at any of these things, but I have seen the colors, and you actually see these in other states. So, and they all represent different levels of things, and I don't want to, I'm not at liberty to talk about because I don't want to get it all wrong. But they're very important colors. Red is, very, I think of for instance, the Queen, I think of um, Alice in Wonderland and the Red Queen, and all these things that have been charged through movies and legend, and things like Red Rover, Red Rover. It's just a very strong color, and I like monochromatic portraits, which haven't been done nearly as often as full colored ones. I was I just love everything about the symbols of both of these people and others. It started with saints more for me. Early on, San Martin de Porres, who's a Peruvian saint. I visited his tomb, and I was asked to paint a portrait of him for a saint show at a gallery in New York early on, and the Met bought my painting of him on his Saint's Day, which I considered nothing less than miraculous.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And so are you still actively channeling these, like, Abraham Lincoln?
I'm not the channeler. I work with people.
Mhm.
I'm a participant. It's a one-on-one for me. But I have, yes, we talk to quite a range of people and beings, and I could, make your hair stand on end with stories of some of what's been said and come true. And it's very exciting, and adds a whole nother dimension to existence on this realm, particularly in times of sorrow and tragic loss. It helps enormously. I've lost quite a few friends this year. My actress friend Sylvia Miles, Monique Van Voren, my brother died 3 years ago. Anyway, it's been a rough time for moving on and knowing that nothing ever is finished.
Right. And so, so is there a particular story about, well, you said that Abraham Lincoln told you to paint the doves, and is there any other information?
Tremendous dialogues have gone on and on and on. But I don't really want to, this isn't something we need to discuss at great length here. But, he was very present in one of my homes, and people started giving me things that belonged to him and Mary. And I have a bust of her and his signatures, and just it's interesting how the energy comes forward. Synchronicity, you could call it. We have Paleolithic ruins above one of my homes upstate New York, and I asked my healer to go look at it with me, and we went to see them, and there was a picture of Lincoln on the grass in front of the Paleolithic ruins, which was really amazing.
Wow.
So random and so specific.
Yeah. So, hey, Shaston, can you go to the next slide? Okay. So what about the rabbits? Thank you. What about the rabbits in your paintings? Are they coming from, and in your sculptures, are they coming from a place like that? Where are they coming from?
Well, I used to put rabbits. I started out in the late 70s painting saints and putting animal aspects of them around the saint. I always put a family of rabbits at the feet. Sometimes it was the white deer of St. Eustace, or tigers. San Martin de Porres had cats, mouse, dogs, and brooms as his symbols, and I put in peacocks and tigers and rabbits and just kept going with it. The rabbit then, what started happening is the things I was putting into these paintings started being singled out. I started finding frames and doing little 10 by 8 paintings where the rabbits really found their voice. And then they became rabbit walls where I hung Salon style hangings of these, I call them my warm-up paintings, like Hans Hoffman did. I do them in the mornings usually. And I've said this before, you use one subject matter, you can play with materials and essences of forms rather than constantly trying to think of new ones. So the rabbit has had tremendous meaning for me. I turned out on the sign of the rabbit in the Chinese zodiac I discovered late one night in a Chinese restaurant at 4 in the morning or something. And, as a kid, Alice in Wonderland just was captivated my imagination endlessly. The rabbit everybody carried rabbit's feet for good luck, which nobody is completely incorrect at this time. And women in the 50s, when I was born, had a rabbit's test to see if they were pregnant. So if the rabbit died, women were pregnant. So now they're just used for testing cosmetics, but it used to be the determining factor and whether somebody was going to give birth, which nobody remembers, much to my surprise.
Yeah.
But it was, I would come home and my mother would say, oh, the rabbit died or something. And so anyway, but rabbits are very vocal as a group. They speak to me in Yunyan. They're very animated. We've had all kinds of serious rabbit imagery through Bugs Bunny and Harvey and Alice in the Mad Hatter. I mean, they really have had a very mysterious and interesting creative wave. Recently in the movie about Queen Anne, she had 13 rabbits for her miscarriages and children that died in birth, and she kept them in her room, and there were all these scenes of groups of rabbits. So I feel like the rabbit is trying to speak to us again. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
The name of it is escaping me. What was it called?
Which one?
The one about Queen Anne that recently came out. And she was involved with the Marlborough, the Duchess of Marlborough, and then this young girl came in and took her place. Anyway, I think she won an Academy Award. Fantastic movie. Queen Anne of England.
So,
Favorite. It's called The Favorite.
oh, yeah. Okay.
If you looked at that movie, the rabbit imagery was overwhelming.
Oh, I'm going to do that.
Wow, am I on the right track?
Yeah. Wow. So another thing I wanted to ask you about, oh yeah, that's a great one. So the individual bunnies and the bunny walls. So those you're saying, is that how you get kind of started every morning? And is there any kind of color symbolism in these individual bunny paintings? Or I've noticed like you'll put diamond dust in some of them, and they have such a wide range.
Yeah, that's the advantage of using one subject matter, as I suggested before, that you can just see the colors bouncing out of the antique frames. I tend to use 19th century frames, which I spend a lot of time searching for. And I love the idea of the Salon style hanging, which used to be the way museums and collectors hung their work.
Mm-hmm.
with colored walls. I mean, David Hockney once said if you put a painting on a white wall, your eye goes to the edge of the painting, and if you put it on a wall with color, your eye goes to the center of the painting. So
Right.
museums are really starting to use color now the way I have for 30, 40 years. And I've always loved paintings on color.
Mhm.
I love them on the same color walls, you know, red paintings on red walls. I like playing with um, that kind of a juxtaposition.
And then another thing I wanted to ask you, these are some of the questions that we've gotten before we go through the studio, because people's minds are going to be pretty blown when they see like all the things in your studio and the world that you create in. So you've talked a little bit about some of the things like from Lincoln and Mary Todd that people have given you, but you have collected masses of antiques and frames and top hats and furniture and plantations. And so what is the connection of history and objects of history other than Lincoln, just in general, to your work? And where do you see yourself and your paintings in that historical context?
Where should I begin? I'm a collector. Many artists are collectors. Rembrandt was a collector. Gustave Moreau is a hero of mine. With a house that he left in Paris is just mesmerizing, filled with treasures and an environment. I was very influenced by Picasso's collecting of chateaus as a child. I thought how wonderful that he could buy these and fill them up and move on to the next one. And I've been very fortunate that I've been able to not fill them up and leave them. I go to them all. I have 7 historic homes and an armory filled to the max with my collections, but I kind of create period environments, and things just fall into my path. I'm on an 19th century aquarium kick right now. I've just acquired 12 Fisk aquariums that are from 1850, and we've sealed them all, and they're all fountains and octagonal and just amazing and very hard to find. I have a great collection of Gothic scent bottles. Gothic revival is one of my favorite forms. I'm often asked what my favorite thing is, and I usually say it's my Sabrec sofa, which I have at Maidwood Plantation. And there was a chair by Sabrec there when I saw the house, and I knew there had to be mine someday. And Beyonce did her music video, Lemonade, in that chair.
Oh, wow.
And then it was used for the movie Beguiled. Sometimes my environments translate into movies. We've had All the King's Men, Beautiful Creatures with Jeremy Irons and Emma Thomas. We had Beguiled with Nicole Kidman and others, and then Tommy Lee Jones and Electric Mist by our neighbor in New Iberia, the writer who did the Robichon detective novels. And Buddy Guy played on the back porch of Albania Plantation. But I just get caught up in the history of these houses. Belterre, one of my most recent ones, was used a lot by Eleanor Roosevelt for having women's conferences. She and Mrs. McLean were quite close. And there's tons of coverage of those events. President McKinley visited the Courts Mansion. I have the original carriage that the Courts family used on their honeymoon. They were brick manufacturers. They built some of the Vanderbilt mansions. It's just fascinating history. The history of the armory is amazing. In Scranton, it was part of the Underground Railroad. 5 American presidents spoke there. Rachmaninoff played there.
Wow.
My psychic roller skated there as a child. And we have tunnels that go on for miles underneath it. Anyway, I've had to have the ghost busted many times. We've had not terrible things, but some activities that we curtailed.
So can we go through your studio a little bit? Take people around?
Sure. I think Allison is going to join us with her camera, and I'm going to see it. How do we do this?
Yeah, I'm signing on right now.
Okay, so do you do it with your phone?
Yeah.
Okay, you run with your phone, and then I'll see it and comment.
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah, that works.
You want to start?
Yeah,
That's perfect.
I think she did it the other day when we were having a test run.
Yeah.
When she gets to the birds, you probably won't be able to hear anything because they get so noisy.
Right.
We can start with the plants. I'm very into the idea of the conservatory. I always have plant life everywhere. We grow a lot of orchids here. And this is about a 6 years of growth jungle. We're building a greenhouse at Belterre out of a picnic pavilion because most of my plants live. Large collection of Blanco glass here, which you'll see in a minute, which comes from West Virginia and is American. I've also delved into a lot of sculptural work. I'm doing glass bunnies as we speak, and I've done 9 monumental sculptures in Louisiana, most recently. One for a butterfly park that's 22 feet tall, and did another one on veterans and clear view of toucans.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of sculptural activity going on. And then I do these installations that look like my studio. We mentioned Huntropolis in the beginning. I was at the, in Taubman Museum at the Roanoke. How are we doing this? Is she supposed to be live with us?
Oh, we have to let her in.
She's in. Yeah, I had to let her in from the waiting.
Yeah.
She's in here now.
But I can't see it, so I can't comment.
She should be.
How would I see what she's doing?
I think I have to be talking in order for it to pop up.
Okay, this is our conservatory area. I'm a big jardineer collector, 19th century jardineers. A lot of them are German, French. I have quite a collection of them. These are Rafus palms that need a lot of water. We're in a constant watering alert. I came home to some wilted things over the weekend. It's very temperature attuned, and it gets quite hot in here. We have a whole orchid thing on the side, and we have blooming hibiscus most days. Over here on the side, we have the orchids. Anyway, that's a good overview of the shot. A lot of the studio is taken up by that. Why don't you go the other way? Yeah. Allison, can you hear me? Guess not.
Yeah, I can hear you, Hunt. I hear you.
So just turn and go back down towards the studio.
Yeah, everyone in the Zoom, I just want to make sure that you know that you can also to see this studio tour. Her name is Alison Deka, and you can click on her and pin her video so that you when she's not talking, you can see the tour. Okay, guys.
Okay, Allison, are you back?
Yep, I'm here, Hunt.
Okay, so this is the expanse. This is part of the bunny wall. You can see it started by my just hanging wet paintings. You can go a little slower. I've used oriental carpets in the middle of all this because cement gets so tired and hard on your feet. This is one of my ocelot paintings that I've done since our sequestering. It's something I had done years ago and didn't have the patience to go back to until this wonderful break that we're having now. This one is going off to Wyoming. I call these ocelots and blue pearls. When I was an exchange student in Nicaragua at 16, I was given an ocelot skin as a present, and I've referred to it a million times. So this is the bunny wall. It changes all the time. We're always sending out large groups of them. We're doing a whole hospital in Virginia right now. Okay, want to hit the Blanco or? You can see this is a 10-foot painting that I call Totem. It's a new motif for me with the rabbit imagery and a new background. Again, this is what comes of repetition, which I consider as sacred rather than a dirty word. There's a lot of uses of it in the pop art movement, you know, green stamps, soup cans, etc. So mountains of rabbits to me have a pop reference. I love to collect marble busts. I have hundreds of them in my home. This is minimal for me. The interior, I usually fill them up to the max. That poof came from Lucknow, India, the orange poof. Allison, can you get the, yeah, it's not, okay. I redid it in an orange velvet. This is a rug that I did. Some of my butterfly fabric over to the side. But one of my fabrics of bunnies. Here's a large butterfly and guardians painting.
That's incredible.
The blue one I called Monsoon after my trips to India during monsoon season. Should we show the paintings that are for the gallery?
Yeah,
Allison,
sure.
go to those. Okay, they're over against the wall. This place has incredible views. It's just breathtaking. My jaw dropped the first time I walked in here.
It is an amazing studio.
I did not want to be here, but Hudson Yards was approved by our last mayor, and they tore my building down. And I had to be out by July, and this was the only thing I could find, and it's fabulous. But I have always been in Manhattan since 1973 until recently, and I still live there. But being here full time is kind of, it reminds me of going to the McDowell colony in New Hampshire. I used to go to art colonies early on, and you are so immersed in your work when you don't leave. It's really kind of, there are a lot of perks to what's going on, not going out every night, not having to dress up.
Right. Hey, Allison, can you go up and show that butterfly painting above Abraham Lincoln's head?
I can't see what she's
Wait.
doing.
Oh, the butterfly. Yeah.
That is incredible. And that frame, I love the way,
Yeah.
what?
I can't see, oh, there we go. That's a frame that you cannot put down. I bought that at the flea market 25 years ago, and I had to have the whole bottom remade because you have to lie it flat or the whole thing breaks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's incredible. And I love the way that the historic frames that you use, it's not about the perfection of the finish on the frame. It's about the history and the life and the memory of the frame and how that relates to your work in a historical context.
Well, there's certain phrase, you know, I love the fact that Louisiana understands patina. And there are books that my life has been based on, like Vestiges of Grandeur and Ghosts Along the Mississippi by Clarence Laughlin. But it's an understood thing that all that's new is not better in these areas. Right. I don't restore my houses. I don't paint trim. I like to show that a house has age. My bedroom at Lakeside Plantation hasn't been painted in 100 years. Everybody said, oh, just get great window treatments and don't touch the room. And that was, I just can't touch it. It's so wonderful to see this patina that took all these millions of years to create. Here, there were no walls, so of course we worked with color. And this is the Blanco glass I'm telling you about.
Oh, yeah.
West Virginia.
I'd like to let some people, while Allison is still walking around, I'd like to make sure people have enough time to ask you some questions. So if there's anyone who wants to ask some questions, send me a signal that you want to do so, or just unmute yourself and ask.
Hey, Allison, it's Shastin. Can you, that white big bunny painting, doesn't that have like diamond dust in it to the left, the one that's coming to the gallery? I was wondering if we could get a little close up of the texture, like sort of a little, yeah, so we can see the, yeah, so we can see all the cool texture and how it, the diamond dust really affects the presentation of that painting.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, painting on diamond dust was a whole new experience for me. My Bulgarian dealer gave me and Damien Hirst and Mark Quinn diamond dust and said, use this. And I had helped diamond dust a Warhol shadow painting years ago when I was doing prints with Rupert Smith, who worked with him. And that was my one experience with diamond dust. But when I was given this, we really didn't know how to adhere it. And there's a lot of resins involved. And it's like painting on sandpaper. So it led to this whole line making new thing for me that is completely different than anything I've done. I'm used to painting into wet oil paint, and I use the back of the brush as well as the front of the brush to carve into the wet paint. I'm sure you've noticed that there are all these lines. Some people think I use a rake or something, but each one is done by hand. And with diamond dust, I can't even put a whisker on a bunny. There's no wiggle room with the paint. You just put it down and you can make it thicker or control it in that way. But it's a very, very different procedure. Mm-hmm. And it's been going on for quite a while in my work. And it's very exciting to live with it because it has, it glistens. A lot of people unfortunately think it's glitter, but it is not glitter at all. And you suffer for living with them because it's a little bit sharp. But it's really exciting to live with because it catches the light and it changes in the light, and it's kind of an alive statement. And it just came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah. Hunt, I'd also like to ask you about how those incised lines that you put, I know you've used them in the past in your bird images to sort of allude to a cage structure.
That's how it started, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how does that transfer to, say, the butterflies, the Lincolns, and the queens when we're looking at these incised lines? I kind of was looking at the queen the other day and thinking about how perhaps maybe she's felt, it was a visual representation of her feeling a little like caged in by the restraints of her position. So I was curious if that was a thing for you, or if it was just or if it was something else.
Well, it has a lot of levels of meaning. First of all, there's a Hindu legend about a tiger with a bird on his head, and the bird is in a cage, and the cage is the soul, and the cage represents the human body, and it's about the harnessing of the senses and mastering of the elements. And it's not a cage, it's actually the attainment of freedom from all of these earthly constrictions that we have. It also is a way of letting things shine through I like to call them veil paintings sometimes because they're cut into and you see what's underneath. Often it's thought of as a light letting in procedure. I think of, well, the first review I got in the Times, Roberta Smith said if Joseph Cornell painted, it would look like my work. And I didn't get it at first, but in his boxes he used birds and often wire, chicken wire, hardware cloth in these creations. And that's what I'm doing with the birds and the butterflies is I'm including this wire element. I'm thinking of a lot of contemporary painting, everything from Magnus Martin to Chuck Close, blah, blah, blah. I just thought it contemporized my work in a way that I drew from having lived with a 40-foot cage for most of my adult life. I lived and worked on where I live now for 24 years with a 40-foot cage is the focus of my life, and watching the world through the grid marks, of the cage. So it just took on a whole lot of meanings for me. And I say mantras often while I'm making these marks, and there's this constant sharpening of the back of the brush. So they're all kind of rituals that I do.
Yeah. I have, so someone was wondering if you're painting any of the birds that you actually live with.
Constantly.
Okay, so they actually, the birds that are in your studio appear in your paintings?
Absolutely. As I say, Audubon killed everything by 20. I mean, he even stabbed a bald eagle to death in a class in Boston. And I am a slave to keeping my animals alive and happy. And they're very near where I paint. I talk to them all day. They scream at me.
And I know that Perky was flying around the other day.
Yeah.
Is he the only one that gets to fly around? Or?
No, we have quite a few that are free. If they're in a cage, it's for their own protection. Some of them just get into too much trouble.
And how about rabbits?
We don't all get along either,
Yeah.
How about what?
Do you have any rabbits?
Not currently. I have turtles and I have fish.
Uh-huh. Are they in the studio also?
Oh, yeah. I don't know what happened to Allison. Is she still filming back there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Is it showing? Because I don't see anything that she's doing.
Do you see me now?
Yes. Oh, that looks great.
Yeah.
The
And
top.
so what about the top hats. Does everybody see the top hats? And
I
those.
show them with the Lincoln paintings. I show them with the Lincoln paintings.
Right. In the Taubman Museum. Right?
I showed them at the Ogden Museum. I showed them in Tennessee State Museum. I showed them in many museums.
And how do you see your work evolving in the future? Do you have anything that's kind of creeping into your work newly, whether it is...
Yes. It's a loaded question. I'm doing glass work for the first time, blown glass. That's very new. We're doing, we're just about to start with bronze sculpture. I've been doing monumental sculpture and other metals in Louisiana, hand painted, hurricane proof, I might add. We've been through many already. Some of them are 15 years up now and they're still bright, and it's real testament to modern technology. I like mostly to do very large scale murals. I did the Bryant Park Grill mural behind the public library 30 years ago. Still there so far. Brendan Gill wrote an article at the time called Miracle on 42nd Street and interviewed me and the architect Hugh Hardy at the time, and I thought that was life's highlight. And then I did the Hamilton Restaurant in Washington, and I was hired under a Cultural Council Foundation Artist Project under the Carter administration, and I did an 86-foot mural for the outside of the Port Authority Dining Hall in the World Trade Center, which I was paid to come and restore after the first bombing. So I love doing 100-foot sculpture. I mean, paintings in particular. I find it very satisfying. And I've been under very tight deadlines, most of them. Now, these are all plaster and diamond dust. I have done one in metal, which is now in a school in Louisiana.
Hun, do you want me to show them some of the glasswork?
Yeah.
Sure, please. Did you show the birds? I don't know if you...
I can get to the birds.
Yeah. These are some of the wooden things. Okay. Here's the glass right here.
Yeah, those are great. I love those. I
Are
love
you showing
I
them?
love that one. Yeah.
They're in editions. The yellow is the first edition.
Yeah, so here's the blue one.
They're very magical.
Yeah, I love the iridescence on the inside of the ears on that blue one. That's beautiful.
Thank you. The birds, maybe, the turtles.
And after going back
we-
there, Allison, can you, are you gonna pass the bunny wall as you're going back there?
She just did. Did you go to the other side? We have two sides.
Can you just show that bunny wall one more time? Because that's just extraordinary. That's amazing. It's just so incredible to see those paintings all together, sort of the energy that they have, and every single one of them has such a different personality. I really love looking at them all together like that. Oh, go into the spotted one, the pink spotted one. I haven't seen that one. Oh, that's great. Wow. And do you have a wall of birds also, like the bunny wall, or no?
We've, no, not really. We're trying to isolate categories. I have why don't you go that way and show the ocelot wall and some of the other newer things. We just have such a problem with wet stuff because things stay wet for so long.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to, we have a bayou area,
Right.
and bunny area particularly. The birds are kind of mixed in with the butterflies mostly. The sculptures are kind of in one of them.
Ooh, I love that one in the gold frame.
Yeah, can you slow down, Allison, and show that pink room better?
Yeah, I was gonna stand over here. How about that?
Some of my females are fine.
Oh, that's good, Alice. Okay. Oh yeah, I love that primary colored one. Oh yeah, those are great. Wow. What's the one with a million birds in it?
Wait, where?
Under the chandelier above the butterflies on the pink wall. Yeah, that one.
Oh, the finches?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the same paintings.
That's amazing. Wow. Love that. Yeah, the brush strokes are just incredible.
All right, do you want to head back to the bird?
Yeah.
And if we pass any bayou paintings along the way, or Allison, can you walk in front of these two large paintings? Because those
Yeah.
Did she show your paintings yet? This jacket is
Yes,
already
we did.
printed. This is my fabric of the turtle.
That's beautiful.
This is the Countess Zacco Benevich. These are earlier works of mine.
It's interesting to, it's really interesting to see you painting the figures in that way. Yeah, I love this painting so much.
Okay, I'll head back to the birds.
Okay.
These are the Gothic sofas. I keep losing it. This is by Sabrac, Louisiana, 1850. This was not meant for a church. These were for private residences. I have 3 of them. They're very, very, very hard to find. Here's a wall of the ocelots which I've done during this sequestered time. I never had the focus to revisit.
Those are amazing. Wow. Oh, I love that blue. It's incredible.
So lots of surprises have come out of this period. I'm actually loving the escape from constant activity, airplane after airplane ride.
Okay, now we're making our way back to the birds.
Oh my goodness.
Can you just show some of the birds? You don't have to run by them and interact with them. So here's Coco and Carmela. They were both given to me, and they've lived home for 20 years, and they've come to me and become completely inseparable.
Aw.
Love each other now. So we've had some nice success stories. These have all been unwanted pets that I've been given.
Really? So like rescue?
Well, people just call me. I don't, I'm not able to take the world, but unofficial.
Yeah. Aww.
I have some at my house upstate too.
Oh. Fabulous.
Anyway, they live forever. One of my birds is 80, and I've had it for 45 years. That's the one about birds is they outlive dogs and cats by a mile. If you're lucky.
Did anybody have any other questions you want to ask? We're almost out of time. If not,
Then what are you doing? Just show the birds in the studio.
Sorry, the connection went out for a second on my side.
Okay. Well, maybe that's enough.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Use the studio a little bit.
Yeah, it's frozen back here. Like I can't see
Okay,
anyone.
we don't have much internet back there.
Yeah, there we go.
Anyway, you can see the expanse of the space. The birds and I are in the back there with where we don't have much phone reception or internet.
thank you guys so much for joining us. And Hunt, thank you so much for letting us take this look into your studio. It's amazing. And I'll be sure and forward any sort of follow-up questions that anyone has.
Oh, okay. Nobody's able to present them at this time?
Well, the one about the birds was one of them.
What was it?
The one about painting your birds was one of the questions. People have been chatting me questions during the time of the Zoom.
Okay. Well, did I miss anything?
No,
Okay.
good.
We're good. I also wanted to give a shout out to everybody who is in front of their Hunt Slonems. I can see some of you, Tokwe, Steven. I love seeing the Hunt Slonems in your backgrounds right now. That's super cool. So I want to encourage you guys, especially to also ask a question if you have one for this like last minute of our conversation.
I'm going to unmute everybody. Now's your chance. Any question?
I'm really blown away.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. You had mentioned doing spiritual practice, and I'd love to hear more about that. And really resonated with what you said about mysticism.
You mean what am I doing currently?
Yeah, what does it mean to you when you say the art as spiritual practice?
Well, I try to meditate every day. I sit in chairs for hours at night, and I say mantras. I have internal dialogues with the master that I follow, who's in Germany, Mother Mira. And just the whole deal of what I do is, you know, I light incense every morning. Just have this whole ritual of stuff. It's not something that I follow, it's something really more that I invent. And, you know, there are flowers involved and incense and candle lighting. And I'm really a strong believer in prayer, particularly at these troubled times. I write letters to God probably every half hour. There's been a lot of stuff that's been hard to overcome, but we're getting through it all. You know, it's just a very floating kind of time where we don't really know what's going on, but the internal connection to the spirit just makes us sail through the whole thing, and knowing that there's a connection, and you know, it's very personal, and my faith is so based on experience and answered prayers, and I always get answers. It's great. It's just, I don't know of any other way of existing, you know. And I love the idea of ritual and the fragrances of other realms, and you know, birds and orchids come from another realm. They're not even of the earth. So all of these tremendous things, we know they're from other places, and they're given to us as reminders of what's possible on this planet when we get all caught up in Marvel comics. Well, even that's based on gods and goddesses. I just think everything exists within the good in my world, and just staying grateful for what comes your way is so essential to survival. I don't know, do you want more specifics? Is that enough?
That's wonderful. I really appreciate what you're sharing, and I can really feel the resonance of the depth of your practice and connection.
Thank you.
In your work, and I just really appreciate what you're sharing.
Well, it's such a gift to do it and want to do it and never be bored with doing it. What a great thing. I mean, I'm just so happy about that. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for doing what you do.
My pleasure.
Thank you, guys. And I really appreciate you joining us today and for getting to know Hunt's work better. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me and we'd be happy to answer them. So thanks again. Stay in touch with us. And a big thanks to Hunt, and a big thanks to Allison too for helping organize all of this.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was really nice.
One more.
Great to see your rabbit.
Everybody's
Love
saying
it.
how incredible this was, Hunt. So thank you.
Anytime. My pleasure. Have a wonderful night.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.